How many times have you heard a man say, I'm fine, but you could feel the weight behind the words? Or maybe you were the one saying it. Today, we're unpacking what that phrase really means, why so many men say it, and how we can start saying something more honest. I'm Dr. Daniel Bates. I'm a licensed counselor, educator with a PhD in counseling and 16 years of clinical experience working with men. Every day, I sit with men in pain, men who are struggling with depression, anxiety, relationship issues, loneliness. And yet, when asked how they're doing, their default answer is, I'm fine. But we both know that that answer isn't telling the whole truth. So let's break it down today. So let's start here. What does I'm fine actually mean when it comes out of a man's mouth? In most cases, it's not a true reflection of how he's really feeling. It's a defense mechanism, a socially acceptable script, a way to shut the door before anyone even asks what's inside. When men say, I'm fine, they might actually be feeling overwhelmed, angry, sad, confused, lonely, helpless, lost, like a burden. But I'm fine feels safe. It's short, it's practiced, it doesn't invite follow-up questions. It kind of shuts the conversation down, so to speak. It's kind of signaling, "Hey, let's move on. Let's go on to something else." And maybe most importantly, it protects you from the risk of vulnerability. Think about it. If I say I'm not doing well, what happens next? Do I have to explain? Will someone judge me? Will I look weak? Will I lose respect? Will I break down? I'm fine avoids all of that. It's an emotional armor, so to speak. But here's the cost. Every time we use that phrase to hide our pain, we push people who care about us farther away. We lose the opportunity to be known, to be understood, to get support. And worse, we lose the opportunity to know ourselves. So I'm fine doesn't really just block others out, it blocks us in. We kind of live in our own little prison, the prison of our making. So this leads us to a deeper question. Why is it so hard for men to say what they're really feeling? It's not just a personal problem, it's a cultural one, a generational one, a gendered one. From a young age, boys are bombarded with messages like toughen up, don't cry, be a man, deal with it yourself. Nobody wants to hear you whining. And these messages get internalized. That external voice becomes my internal self talk. Over time, those external messages solidify into concrete beliefs. Things like emotion is weakness, vulnerability is dangerous or unsafe, silence is strength, and my job is to fix, to solve, not to feel. These beliefs can lead to what we call normative male alexithymia. I talked about that in the first video, a psychological term that describes a difficulty with identifying and expressing emotion, especially in men. And today I really want to get into the depths of that. So, normative male alexithymia, it's not a diagnosis, it's more of a cultural phenomenon, a cultural wound that's left on men. And it shows up in men's lives in kind of quiet, subtle, yet devastating ways. You'll hear it in therapy when a man says, I don't know what I'm feeling. I just get angry. I feel numb. I can't talk to my wife anymore. I just shut down. And underneath that often is a true, genuine emotion, things like shame or deep loneliness that's been buried for a long time. But because so few of us were taught how to name what we feel or that it's okay to feel, given the freedom to feel that, it becomes, again, just easier to say, I'm fine. It's safer, it's automatic, it's how we've survived. It's been adaptive in some situations. But survival is not the same as living or thriving. If we want to thrive, we have to learn to feel. and have to unlearn silence. So when I work with men, I want them to imagine something like an iceberg. Above the surface, there's just the tip of the iceberg. And typically, men experience what's called a secondary emotion above the surface at the top of the iceberg. And they express things like anger or things in that family of emotions, irritation, annoyance, frustration, but beneath the surface are the primary emotions, things like loneliness, sadness, grief, shame, guilt, loss, worry, fear. And so, what I coach men to do is when they're saying, I don't know what I'm feeling, or, it's a mystery to me, or I'm numb, is I ask them to go down into the depths and do a little bit of exploring. Now, for most men, that feels deeply uncomfortable to go down into the depths to a primary emotion. I think we like to stay in the safety of the secondary emotion of anger and frustration and irritation. It feels safe. I feel guarded behind it. To use another metaphor, it's kind of like my castle wall. I'm safe on the inside of the castle wall. But sometimes it gets really lonely in the safety of the castle when we can't ever let anyone else in. And so again, what I coach men to do is go down into the depths, explore what those primary emotions are, and to bring that emotion back up to the surface so that you can then name it consciously and then describe it, explain it, articulate it, and express it to others. Now, for men, that conceptually or intellectually makes a lot of sense. It's the doing it that's really hard because going down into the depths, exploring those primary emotions is really uncomfortable. We're not used to it. Again, we're used to saying, I'm fine, having the guard up, and moving on. We're not used to really understanding it and feeling it. We don't allow ourselves to feel it. And I've even worked in many cases where men can say, okay, I think I'm better at naming the emotion. I can even, identify it, but I can't let myself feel it. It's too powerful. It's too scary. And I think a lot of men have kind of this distorted perception of emotion that if I allow myself to really feel, I'll lose my control. I need to have a tight grip on control. That's where I feel safe. Again, that's why I keep moving on. I say I'm fine. I stick with anger. That's all within the realm of control. But to really feel, to emote, to express, to be vulnerable, to let someone else in, to let them understand, I feel like I'm losing my control. So that's where I reframe that with men and I say, you're not really losing control. I mean, in many senses, you're gaining control. It's actually quite the opposite. To be more emotionally literate and competent is to take this emotion that if you pretend like it's not there, it kind of gains power. It gains control over you. And so by naming it, you are then able to tame it. Name it to tame it. And ultimately, it's like I want men to have the reins back on their emotional life. But that means you got to get in touch with the emotion first. You got to understand it, process it, articulate it, all that stuff. So name it to tame it is kind of the name of the game, right? Go down to the depths, explore, manage that discomfort, do things like deep breathing, use maybe some positive self talk like, this is okay, I can handle this. I'm going down into the depths to gain control. Your nervous system is going to give you signals of panic and fear and danger. So you got to soothe the nervous system, do things like deep breathing, grounding exercises, progressive muscle relaxation. Those are all things that I can get into in future videos and really try to get into the minutia. I'm just kind of giving you a high level overview sense of what to do, but manage that discomfort and then reframe the experience. Do some positive self talk like, I can do this. I can handle this. I'm capable. This will be better for me after I've worked through this. And then the end result is, again, like I said, now you understand it, you can articulate it, other people can understand you, you can understand yourself. The feeling is connected to a behavior, and you can understand that relationship better. And you can realize is that behavior something that's helpful for me or helpful for others? So by having a better understanding of the feeling, I can now choose different behaviors that are more effective for me and more helpful for me. Now let's talk about the cost. If you don't do this, if you just stay in that secondary emotion of anger, you never go down into the depths, you never do the work of dealing with the discomfort of those primary feelings, well, that's going to come with a price. Saying I'm fine all the time comes at a very steep cost. When you suppress your emotions, they don't just disappear. All those big, primary, deep emotions down in the depths, they're there, whether you're sticking with anger or ignoring them or using some kind of unhealthy coping mechanism, they're still there. They're going to get directed in certain ways that maybe you don't want. They're going to leak out. They're going to show up in your body, in your behavior, in your relationships. They're going to manifest somehow, but you don't get the choice of how they manifest if you don't deal with them. Does that make sense? By not dealing with the emotion, you lose the choice of how they manifest. So, some common consequences that we see are irritability, angry outburst, substance use, emotional distance in relationships, sexual disconnection, physical health problems like high blood pressure or insomnia, anxiety, depression, and tragically for many men, suicide. So, the research shows us that men are far less likely to seek mental health help, but more likely to die by death by suicide. And that's not because men are weaker. It's because men are so isolated socially, culturally, and from themselves. You're so isolated from others, no one knows that you're struggling. That isolation often starts with a simple phrase, I'm fine. We're back full circle, right? Every time you say, I'm fine, instead of the truth, you widen the gap between who you are and who others think you are. You can't even remember your true self. You don't know what your authentic self is like. You become so divorced from who you are. So, what can we do about this? First, let me say this very clearly. This is not about becoming a different person. This is about becoming more of who you are, being more honest with yourself, being a more authentic version of yourself. I want you to not just be you, but to be the true you, fully you. I want you to be fully human, to give yourself your humanity back. So here's one small practice that you can begin today. I call it the name one feeling rule. Kind of keep in mind the name it to tame it idea. So every day, once a day, pause and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And a little secret, you can do this more than once a day. And it might be really helpful to do this more than once a day. Maybe do it every meal. Maybe do it when you wake up and you go to bed. Maybe do it every time you pull out your phone. I mean, I pull out my phone 80 times a day. So if I'm checking in with how I feel 80 times a day, I'm going to be a lot better. It doesn't need to be a long list. Just start with one word. Choose from these 6 common male emotions: anger, anxious, ashamed, sad, lonely, tired. You can also go on Google and just Google an emotion chart or an emotion wheel. And I've literally given guys this in therapy as a homework assignment. Walk around with one of those emotion charts in your pocket, pull it out randomly, and use it to help you identify the feeling. We need the words. We need the words to unlock the phenomenon, the experience. And sometimes you don't have the words. So it can be really helpful to have like an app or a handout or a chart or something like that. And then you can do a very cursory overview, a scan of it, and help yourself identify, yeah, this is kind of within the domain, the family of feeling words. I'm going to go with tired right now. So I want you to try it. Take a deep breath, check in, and try it right now. So really, truly, take a deep breath. Maybe check in with what's going on physically with you or situationally. Reflect a little bit, and then think about what you're feeling. What are you feeling right now? This is the simple act of naming that builds self awareness. And self awareness is the first step towards change. So I'll give you a couple seconds here. Name what you're feeling. Pause the video, actually, if you want. Pause the video and name it. Maybe grab a piece of paper, jot it down. Okay. So you want to level it up? All right. So just naming it's not enough right now. You want to go a little further. So try journaling at the end of your day. Try saying it out loud to a partner or a friend. Check in with yourself when you feel the urge to say, I'm fine. Those moments are actually really, really instructive, I think. So if you have caught yourself saying it, revisit that moment and to imagine or to wonder or to get curious, what was causing me to say that? What was going on for me when I said that? Maybe practice replacing I'm fine with something more real but manageable. For example, honestly, I'm feeling off today. I've been tired this week. It's been a rough day, but I'm dealing with it. So you're not going too far out of your comfort zone, but you're going a little bit. And I just want you to take kind of baby steps beyond what you're comfortable with. If you shoot for the moon, you'll quit. So just expand the edge of your zone of comfortability just by an inch. You don't have to pour out your heart to everyone. You don't have to lie to yourself. The goal isn't to be emotionally flooded, it's to be emotionally aware and honest and authentic and to tame the emotion. If you don't tame it, it's going to tame you. So I would rather put you in an empowered, strong position and an effective position versus kind of a weak position where it's taming you. And again, the more you practice, the easier it becomes. You can't just do this once in a blue moon. You've got to make this a daily, regular practice. I'm always kind of preaching self discipline to my male clients. And if you do this over time, you'll notice that your relationships change, your confidence grows, that the wall between you and the world starts to crumble, and that divorced state that you have with your own experience, your own spirit, your own emotions starts to crumble as well. So, if you've spent years saying, I'm fine, you are not broken, my friend. You are not defective. You've just been taught to disconnect. It's been modeled to you of divorcing yourself from your own experience, from your own emotions. And what we want to do is reintegrate yourself to your emotions. So here's the good news. We can start that work of reconnecting. You can relearn and you can heal. So I'm going to go into more depth in future videos. Tomorrow, we're going to go really deep. Day 3, I'm going to walk you through how to recognize emotional triggers, those moments that hijack your nervous system, and what you can do in a real time moment to regain your control. But until then, pause, breathe, and name one feeling. And I think you're probably doing better than you think. So if you're watching this video, it's a good start. I'll see you at the next video.